This is Scott Becker with the Becker Private Equity and Business Minute podcast. We're thrilled to be joined by brilliant entrepreneur, leader, Justin Breen. Justin's the author of a couple books. He's always got another one coming out. He's the founder of a couple businesses. And just want to level with great ability to work with and deal with people as well. Can you take a moment and tell us a bit about yourself? Then I want to talk about what are you most focused on and excited about this year?
Yeah, it's great to talk to you. You are a great visionary. And I've been listening lately to a lot of Earl Nightingale. That's a blast from the past. He actually has Chicago connections. He was on WGN radio, and I think his daughter went to Homewood Flossmoor High School, which is where my wife went as well. But so Earl Nightingale, and I was listening to one of his videos the other day, and he said something really interesting. He said two things, actually. But so the two things are: success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. That's how he defines success. And then we become what we think about. We become what we think about. So most of my day is spending time with my family or talking to top entrepreneurs on planet. And it's like all those meetings are the progressive realization of a worthy ideal, which is, for me, is to be connecting superhero for every visionary who shares their stories with the world. So that's the worthy ideal. And then the success is just, you just keep doing it over and over and over. And it's progressive realization. It's super interesting.
And talk about how you got turned on to Earl Nightingale. Earl Nightingale was like the Zig Ziglar before Zig Ziglar, so right. A great motivational, inspirational talker, books on tape. Tell us a little bit about Earl Nightingale, because I'm sure that the generation that we're in today, like Earl Nightingale's before my generation, and I'm an older generation than you. So talk a little bit about who Earl Nightingale was and how you sort of came to start listening to or following Earl Nightingale.
So that's interesting. One, that you know who he is. Two, that you pegged that why, like you're looking for the answer, your strategy brain. So one of our friends, Bill Bloom, he's a deep thinker, a futurist, and which is interesting because he dug way back into the past to watch Earl Nightingale, and then he sent me that video. He's like, you need to spend 30 minutes listening to this. So I did, and then I'm like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. This makes a lot of sense. So that's one reason, is Bill Bloom told me about it. Two, we've talked about this many times, but my father was born in 1916. He'd be 107 now. And so he was 61 when I was born. So like, I almost should have been born in like the 1940s, like early 1940s or maybe late 1930s. So I have like this older generation wisdom I really appreciate and understand can resonate with people like Earl Nightingale. And then I'm in a 45-year-old body with childlike mindset of like a 5-year-old, which, by the way, I think Earl did as well. You could kind of hear it. I don't know if you know his background, but he survived horrific childhood, war, all of that stuff. And so he was like that, evolved, and he's very similar to my father as well, who had horrific childhood and survived World War II in Korea as well. So it's like a personal thing, and then talking to top entrepreneurs that recommend videos.
Phenomenal. I know he was one of the great sort of motivational speakers. He's got one of the great motivational books of all time. Fascinating thing. And so what do you take out of that? How does that help fill your bucket and keep you moving in the right direction?
That's tremendous. So I'm a very simple human, like 100% simplifier. And it's really fascinating because the only two questions I ask myself, and I've been doing this for a long time, the only two questions I ask myself every day that matter is, one, did I have a good experience that day with my family? And then two, did network grow on a global level? I have found all this other stuff takes care of itself. And then even though Earl recorded that, I think in the 1940s or something, 1950s, like the two questions I ask myself are, it's success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. So worthy ideal is spending time with family, and then growing network. That's a worthy ideal. So I was doing what he was saying. just simplified it from two questions into one sentence. So to me, that's what success is. And then he was saying, like, success, you can, if you want to be a school teacher, then you just progressive realization of being the best school teacher. You want to be someone who picks up garbage, you know, it doesn't matter. I just want to be connecting superhero for every visionary who shares their stories with the world and then spend time with my family. That is my worthy ideal.
But how important is that to success? Because I think it's so important, that clarity to both success,
yes,
in a sort of like outside way, but more importantly, success in a centered internal way, that you've got clarity.
100%.
This is what I want to do. I want to be close to my family, and I want to do this in business. I've got those two things. That's what it is, and that's magnificent, isn't it? Because that's everything, isn't it?
Well, here's what's interesting. What you just said is because success is progressive realization of worthy ideal. Two things for me are my family and network. I was a journalist for 20 years, so you don't get into that for business stuff. So really what has happened is the worthy ideal and progressive realization has turned into spending as much time with my family as I want to, and then creating two global businesses based on network. So it's actually, the business has been a byproduct of that progressive realization of a worthy ideal. You know, I feel like we're being very philosophical today, even more than normal, but this is what, you know, this is what happens when you talk to top entrepreneurs every day. We rarely talk about business stuff. It's like the centered focus creates everything else.
But that point is so well taken. I mean, without clarity of what you're trying to do, and this is challenging for people because you go back and forth. At least I've gone through back and forth through periods of life where I've got great clarity and then I don't have great clarity. And when you have great clarity, it may be hard, but it's simple. Meaning it's simple because you know what you're doing. The work might still be hard. To do it well might still be hard. Whether it's building a business, taking care of my kids, whatever it might be hard work. But the simplification and clarity it makes it a ton less friction, a ton easier, even though it still might be hard work to do what you have to do. But that simplification and clarity of here's what I'm trying to accomplish this year. I mean, I think you or one of your colleagues uses the concept of naming one's years. And but it all comes back to the same concept of the more you could simplify life, this is what I'm trying to do, the less cognitive dissonance you live with every day, and the easier it is to excel and to thrive internally and externally.
Well, here's what's interesting too. So I'm 45. You're in human age years, you're older than me, but you're still trying to, you'll never stop trying the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. So this conversation is for you. That's what you're trying to keep doing it every single day. So you're trying to become more and more successful with that worthy ideal. I mean, it's the same thing.
100%. And I'd be not to leave the elephant in the room, but I might be 12, 13 years older than you. But you know, but I'm very much focused on a life of constant this progressive realization. I love that. And you know, and if through different periods of time, after selling a business, after doing this, after doing that, after building this or building that, after the kids went off to college, whatever it might be, it's constantly having to periodically refine that progressive realization. I love that term, that clarity of what you're trying to accomplish, that clarity of what you're trying to do. And I think when you have that, I mean, I can put it both ways. When you don't have that clarity, in some ways you might be doing well on the external measures, you know, money or this or that, whatever the external measures are. Well, you don't have clarity about what you're really trying to achieve. It feels quite empty, and you might really feel like treading water, even though the external measures might look good. But when you have that clarity, that progressive realization of, here's what I'm trying to do. You know, I'm trying to be good with my family, and I'm trying to do great at this, and those are the few things I'm trying to do great at. It just, then I don't mind doubling down, investing, putting money into, putting time into, putting energy into these things, because I've clarified, here's what I'm trying to do. So I mean, I love that perspective, and it might be old school, it might be Earl Nightingale, it might be whatever it is, but that concept of progressive, it is, and this term that I've never heard before, progressive realization, progressive, is that the term?
Oh, it's success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal, and then the second one is we become what we think about.
Yeah. So if this progressive realization of a worthy idea, of what is a worthwhile idea, worthwhile endeavor, I think it's a wonderful thing. And I'll write those down when Chanel and you and I are off the podcast.
Yes.
And then you become what you think
so
about, which I think is also very true.
So you're writing it down, and so I literally did a screen grab of that, and it's now my computer desktop. It's my Facebook cover photo. So I'll constantly look at it, constantly, every single day. I'm looking at it right now. So and when it's always there, then you can constantly progress. It's just really interesting. I think that's why you're so interested in it, because in this one, even more than normal, is because like you see it, you're like, oh, that just makes sense, and that's literally what you've been doing your whole life, regardless of what companies you're in. I mean, you're just trying to get better and better every day.
But the important thing though is, and this is where I think this is hard work. Hard work is sometimes in life, it becomes very clear what you want to be better at. Like some of my most challenging times in life were the most fulfilling, is it was so clear what I wanted to and had to be great at that point. And that might have been hard work, but it was very compelling because I had that clarity, that progressive realization. I just love that, because I think that, you know, and I think for many of us, we can struggle to find that. People like me that are hard, fast charging people,
yes,
we have often found it through action. We take action and we find the clarity of what we're trying to do progressively.
Yes.
Other times, we could be taking all kinds of actions, but it doesn't really get us any place because we're not quite able to grab onto what is that progressive realization of what we're trying to accomplish. And it's just putting that work in to try and define, here's the progressive realization of what I'm really trying to do is so important.
Yes. Yeah, it's the anchor for your entire life. That's what it is. That one sentence is when you find that, then you just, there's a great documentary, it's called Hero Dreams of Sushi, something like that. JIRO.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
So his life is just I don't even know if he's still alive, but when it was made, he was 85. He wasn't stopping. So he had a 3-star Michelin restaurant in a subway station in Tokyo with 10 seats. So his whole life, I'm paraphrasing, but his whole life, success for him is you find the skill that you want to do, whatever that skill, company, whatever that is, teacher, and then you just keep getting better at it every single day. So that's how I look at it with family and network. Like with Hero, he keeps getting better quality fish, better ingredients to make better and better sushi. I just keep meeting cooler and cooler people to make better and better network connections, better sushi. It's the same thing. You just keep getting better at it every single day.
Fantastic. No, I think that is so wonderful. Like, I always use this other concept. There's not being active, which I think is a state of depression. It can be very depressing. Yes. There's being active, which is better than not being active. And then there's active with purpose. And active with purpose, I think, is the most likely to lead one to self-actualization and to where they want to be, being centered. Yes. And it resonates well with your concept, the concept you're talking about of progressive realization. I just love that. Yep. Justin Breen, again, is joining us today on the Becker Private Equity and Business Minute podcast, one of our regular guests, one of our most listened to guests. Justin, always inspiring to talk to you. I want to thank you for joining us today. Just love getting a chance to visit with you. I always come away a little inspired, a little motivated. I learned something. Thank you so much for joining us today. And always, again, Justin Breen, the founder of BrEpic, the author of Epic Business, Epic Life. I've got both the books, fantastic leader. Thank you so much for being with us today, Justin.
Thank you, Scott. This is a tremendous discussion.